Tried prompts. You've used all kinds of strategies. But here's the truth. AI can't give you clarity, only a mirror. Real clarity comes from knowing who you are before you even type any words. And today we're going to talk about that. Hi, my name's Steve Kidd. I am a third generation minister, international best-selling author of 39 books and counting. I've had the wonderful privilege of working with nearly 5,000 people, helping them write, publish, market their books to bestseller, and everything that goes beyond that. And what I love being able to do is help you really truly find the clarity that you need to make the impact in this world that you're meant to make. Clarity is powerful. Being clear on who we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, all of those kind of things, those are what needs to come first. That is the kind of stuff that we absolutely have to have in order to truly succeed. If not, we're just kind of floundering around hoping that somebody else will come along and tell us who we are. Because if we don't define who we are, somebody else in this world will absolutely be willing to come in and be more than glad to tell you who you should be. And that can be very, very dangerous because most of the time, the people that are willing to tell you who you are and how you should live in this world probably do not have your best in mind. And no, I'm not talking about AI. I'm talking in this particular case about specific people who love finding people who haven't defined themselves and give them that definition that they quote unquote lack. I want to be clear on something here today as we begin to talk about the clarity that AI can't give you. Okay, I need to be really clear and help and hope and make sure that you understand. I love technology. I've been involved in using technology pretty much all my life. I mean, like literally going back into junior high and high school and stuff. And I took a computer science class in high school before there were personal computers, technically. Right at the at the end of when I was doing that is when the original Apple computers, and I'm talking about the Apple computers, not the Macintosh that is now the Apple computers, but I'm talking like the TSR 80s and the Apple and Apple II. For those of you that remember it, I mean, the storage space was like cassette players. I mean, before we even had floppy disks. Okay. And I love and I use on a regular basis AI. I use it to help me write the descriptions for this live. I use it to help me brainstorm and do some writing with my books. I use it to, for so many things. One of the things that I'm using it for right now is to help me outline all of the 501c6 and all of the nuances and really truly dig into it. And I'll tell you with that particular one, because we're talking about a legal document, I've got like 3 or 4 different AIs that I'm checking it with and making sure that we're in that. And then though, at the end of all of that, I'm still going to have a lawyer go through it. I wouldn't want to submit that paperwork with the potential gap between my understanding, my knowledge of the law, and all of those things, and leave myself and my business partners open for that kind of liability. And that's where technology always runs into the need for human beings. The same thing's true in the creative space. You see, AI doesn't create, it mirrors, it reflects. It takes all of history or all of the history that's been given it, depending on how large the large language model is, and it reflects that back. The reason why there are some AIs, hey, Jason, thank you, I appreciate that. How are you doing? I've been wanting to have a conversation with you, so it's great to see you today. I appreciate that. The thing about it is that it will never replace creativity because Even like you said, even the ones that could, they're claiming have or can pass the Turing test. It's because the Turing test or the Turing test, or however it's pronounced, um, includes in it um, is included in the large language model, so it understands everything that's the nuances of the Turing test, and can be like, well, yeah, I mean, here's all the things, and here's all the things we need to do, and here's all the information I need to bring in, and here's how, and it's reflecting, because ultimately the Turing test is something that a person created to be able to evaluate it. Okay. And then it can be fed into it. And that's the way always with creativity. Always the creative person can take a total veer way off and go into something that the past has never thought of doing. It's the age old, well, we never did it that way before. That's where the creative comes in going, yeah, I know, but watch how cool this is going to be. The creative mind has the capability to be able to see something that isn't before it becomes. Okay. And we'll never get beyond that need for creativity. However, we can use that tool to enhance so much and to expedite so many things. But we can't use that tool to tell us who we are. That tool will be glad to, and I'm talking about any tool. Don't even have to go into AI realm. I mean, and you could talk about people who are tools in that particular case even. Okay. They'll be glad to tell you who you are. But that won't be who you are. That'll be who they tell you you are. Kind of like, when you were kids growing up and your parents would say something, and you began to get into that teenage years. And I'm not talking about the rebellious version of teenage years, but I'm talking about just, that natural growing process where you begin to go, I'm not sure what I think about that. I'm not totally positive how I feel about that particular thing. Right? And you're like, huh. And you begin to form your own opinions. And some of those, slightly or even radically differ from your parents. And some of that, can easily, this phone is going crazy today. Holy cow. Some of that can easily fall into rebellion, but it doesn't need to. It's that self-discovery, that awareness of who we are, to find and fill that unique position that each of us is made to do. Okay, you're not, and you won't be, a clone of your parents. You're a beautiful mixture, and it's not even a 50-50 mix, a beautiful, wonderful mixture of your parents and their parents, and and all the genetic blueprint that makes up exactly who you are, to allow you to fill that really super cool space that is yours, that you were created to be. And AI can't give you the clarity on that. That is a journey, a process that you need to go through. It starts by moving in that direction. You can't get clear standing still. You can't think your way into clarity. You can't process your way into clarity. You can't, and this is where, we run into the biggest of the problems with AI trying to give you clarity, is it's another version of thinking your way into clarity. Clarity comes through the movement, through the doing. You try something and it resonates. You try something, it doesn't resonate. Okay. And you become clearer and clearer in that. You think of doing something and it immediately is, I mean, there are certain things that when you hear about it, you immediately, it's like, no, no, I'm not interested. No. Right. Okay. And there are other things that's like, I wonder. Now, I'm not saying that all the things that intrigue us or appeal to us are good for us. In fact, sometimes quite the opposite. But there is that inherent nature of who we are. Now, I can tell you that if you ignore that inner gut, that listening to yourself long enough, you can sear that. You can burn it out. and just be to the place where you'll do any crazy wacko thing that somebody presents to you because you've learned how to not listen to your own conscience. But we all have it. As Jiminy Cricket says, always let your conscience be your guide. Clarity comes from that listening. So we have to be in movement. We have to be in motion. We have to be having experiences to know, and we have to listen to that inner knowing. And that develops the clarity. That's the number one primary piece of it. Secondarily, we need help. We absolutely do. We need somebody that can come into and help us evaluate it and ask us the most simple and most advanced of all questions: why? You see, it doesn't take much for you to be triggered on that thing that you're really into. You can go off on a particular subject like nobody's business because you're really, really totally into it. Absolutely. We all know what that's like. We know what it feels like to have something that, we're just passionate about. What you need a third party like myself to come in and do is to come in and ask you that simple yet so advanced and difficult question: why? Why is that important to you? And help you work through that process to listen to what you're saying and then be able to help you by reflecting it back. This is what I hear you saying. Is that what you really meant to say? It's much like therapy. Finding your clarity is very much in some ways like, like going into a deep therapy session with a therapist that really cares about you and is helping you. Now, the only major difference is that there is a whole Freudian concept in therapy of never truly healing a person. And that's a very Freudian theory, in that you don't ever want a person to ever believe that full health is possible, because if they think and see and feel that, then they'll stop going to therapy, and then the therapist no longer has that person as a client. That's not my words. That's a paraphrase of how Freud put that. Whereas for me, what I want you to do is get the clarity that I can help you get, and the systems and the tools and the processes to be able to really know then how to listen to that gut and continue honing and defining and developing that clarity. Because as you have new experiences, as you do new things, you're going to get more clear and you're going to grow and develop. And just like the tree grows up and it sprouts multiple branches, you're going to grow up and you're going to be and do and learn. And, 5, 10, 20, 50 years from now, you'll be even more than you are now. And that one too comes back to if you're working from the point of being as clear as you can. You see, the truly healthy person isn't the person whose life is perfect, who has no problems happening, all those kind of things. The truly healthy person is the person who wants to try to be the very best version of themselves that they can be during the day that we call today. That's health. That's what real mental health looks like. In some of our cases, that may mean that there's certain medications that we need to take, short-term or permanently. If you went to the doctor, and I'll totally pick on myself with medications that, that I'm off of now. But if you go to the doctor and your blood sugar is really high, they're going to put you on some type of diabetes medicine. Okay, now if you're type 1 diabetic, there's insulin shots and stuff like that, because your body isn't creating, just was flawed in that realm, okay, in the capability to naturally create insulin. In the case of the type 2, it typically has to do with that system being either burnt out or destroyed through lifestyle kind of choices. My point in case. And there are some very good health related kind of things. I encourage you, as I always do, go to energizehealth.com, follow John and Chelsea. They've got a great way for helping you do that. But if that number comes back that high, the doctor's going to give you a medication and it's going to help you. And that's good, because those levels being too high can have permanent dangerous effects to you. The same would be true with your blood pressure, for example. Every time you go into the doctor's office, there's a reason why they take your temperature, they take your blood pressure, those kind of things. Those are some key indicators that tell them both how well are you feeling now, as well as if that number's high, is this an ongoing problem that we need to address? AI is the same kind of a concept. It really is more about looking at the clarity that you have and then offering you some things that you can put together with it to be able to make that even more powerful. To find yourself saying the same words over and over and over and over again and want to break it up and say to AI, how can I say this exact same thing, keep my tone, my style, my who I am, my voice, but how can I say that differently? You see, if you don't know your tone, your style, your voice, who you are, if you don't have that clarity, you can't give it to AI. So AI will gladly just say, and yeah, you can do the things. There was, and we've moved away from them in the book industry, but there was a time there when a lot of the books that were being written were based off of the concept of write a story about such and such in the style of so-and-so. And it could go through, the 10, 100, whatever books that person had, and come up with a tone, a voice, a style, or whatever. But that was, even if it was your book and your inventive concept that you wished you would have seen, what if Tolkien had written a book that was an outer space opera versus being Middle Earth? Or what if the next instance of Middle Earth was, they got in a rocket ship and went to another planet. Okay. I mean, I know I'm going way, way off of, where all of the Tolkien books went. But it could take the choice, the tone, the voice, the style of Tolkien, and it could create that. Okay, but that wouldn't be, even though your imagination came up with that concept, that wouldn't really be the heart and soul and core of who you are. And that's what we find all too often when we're writing our posts, creating our videos, doing our books, whatever other messaging, spoken elements that we're using AI to do, without finding our clarity first, because there's no algorithm that can tell you who you are. It can only reflect back to you what it knows about you. You want to use technology. Technology is awesome. It's amazing. You can look back a couple of days ago, I made a really fun video, and I did it all via technology. Well, mostly. I created all the videos, and then I actually went in manually, and I kind of seamed three parts of videos all together into one and synced them up. Okay. But it says that really alarming thing that I'm always saying to you. I couldn't save the world. But, AI couldn't help me save the world because I didn't know who I am. You get that point? I don't know who I am. AI can't tell me who I am. It'll gladly tell you who you are. I'm not saying that if you went to ChatGPT or Grok or Perplexity or, on and on and on. There's so many of them these days, right? There's one service that I saw that has access to 2,000 AIs that you could interface with. Okay. And I'm sure that some of them are written and some of them are video and blah, blah, blah. Okay. It doesn't matter. The point being is you can go to them and you can have them and you could ask them the basic question of, tell me who I am. and it would gladly tell you who you are. Now, some of them can get a little snarky. They can be like, well, I don't know you, so how could I tell you who you are? Or I'm just a computer and I don't really know who you are. Who are you? Most of the more modern uh, versions of all of those are going to end up asking you questions. They're going to end up taking you through a basic low end clarity session. Before I can give you this answer, tell me these things. See, even AI knows I can't just give you that answer. See, I like it when it comes back to me and says, now, before I do what you ask me to do, answer these questions for me. Give me more clarity. See, even AI is getting to a place where it realizes what I really need is more clarity. And no matter how great the data set is, more clarity makes it even more betterer. I know that's not good English, but it really says what I'm saying. AI can give you a lot of amazing things, but you've got to know yourself. Because if not, you're going to look at the thing and you're going to be like, wow, that's really cool. That sounds really amazing. You know, I remember the first time I did a writing via AI, and this is before I had seasoned mine and before I had given it all the information. And I sent it to the lady that's the main editor for most all the books that I've ever done. You know, she knows my voice and tone and style. You know, she's done probably 35 of my 39 books. Um, and I was like, you know, what do you think? She's like, well, it was interesting, but it's not you. It doesn't have your pacing, your tone, your style. She goes, there's some weirdnesses to the way that you express that are very fun. They're very interesting, but they're also very you. You know, she goes, and I wouldn't remove them. I would never want to see you lose those. But this doesn't have them. Now we've seasoned it to the point where the last thing that I sent her, she said, you know, I said, does this sound like me? And she said, yeah, why? You can get to that point, but that comes from clarity. You want to use the technology, but you need to keep your humanity. You want to use the technology, but you don't want to cut people out of the process. You got to know, who am I speaking to? That heart, that connection, that person you want to meet. You've got to practice, drill, rehearse, consistency, so that you really truly believe it. Besides the 10,000 hours of becoming an expert at something, you need another 10,000 hours for you to really actually believe what you're saying yourself. Those two really don't work hand in hand. As much as I wish they did, often it takes us the 10,000 hours of hearing us say the same thing before we ever get to the place where we then can put in the 10,000 hours to truly be the expert in the thing. Because if not, if we don't have that clarity, as my friend Kevin always says, practice doesn't make perfect. All it does is make you really great at being good at doing it wrong. If you don't have the clarity, you can spend the 10,000 hours and you can be an expert at not being really, really you. And I want you to really, truly be you. I love, and what I'm here to do, what we do at Visibility Amplifier, is we help real people cut through the AI noise and truly discover who they actually are, to find that powerful clarity, so that every message, every strategy, every piece of content that you write can finally work. And if you're ready to finally have the powerful messaging, the all important strategy that the clarity and only the clarity can give you, then come to visibilityamplifier.com. Come join us right now. I would love to have you there. I really invite you to come, because AI can't write your content. Not really. Well, it can. It could. AI could write your content, but AI can't write your content until you give it your clarity. And you can't give it your clarity until you have your clarity. Then AI can write your content because you'll have the clarity. Not because AI told you this is who you are, but because you spent the time discovering who you are. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Tomorrow we're going to get together again. We're going to talk like we do every day. How to speak so people feel you. Ooh, here's another place, that a human element, that feeling. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow. I hope that you're happy, safe, warm, and loved. And that until we're together again next time, you have a great week.